Aging doesn't begin in your skin, your joints, or even your energy levels. It may begin deep inside your gut ecosystem, where invisible biological decisions are being made every single day. And if you've been focusing only on creams, supplements, anti-aging workouts, or expensive skincare routines, you might be looking in completely the wrong place. Because inside your body, there is a hidden control system that acts almost like a biological command center for how fast or how slowly you age. Think of your gut not just as a digestion organ, but as a control room of biological time, where trillions of microbes quietly influence inflammation, repair, metabolism, and even how quickly your cells begin to lose their youthful function. And here's the disturbing part. For many people, this internal system is slowly shifting in the wrong direction. Like rust forming inside a hidden engine, unseen processes may be accelerating aging long before any external signs appear on the surface. Every meal, every morning habit, every routine choice may be quietly feeding either the systems that preserve youth or the ones that speed up internal decline. What's even more fascinating is that scientists are now beginning to identify specific groups of gut bacteria that may act like a biological youth switch, influencing whether the body stays in repair mode or slips into accelerated aging. But here's the question almost no one is asking. What if your daily routine is unknowingly turning that switch in the wrong direction every single morning without you ever realizing it? Scientists now estimate that a surprisingly large portion of the biological signals associated with aging, such as rising inflammation, declining energy production, and metabolic slowdown, may be closely tied to imbalance in the gut ecosystem. In other words, the gut is not just digesting food, it may be influencing how fast the entire body begins to age from within. Inside millions of people right now, the gut can resemble a polluted river, where once beneficial bacteria are gradually replaced by inflammatory strains that disrupt normal function. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It builds silently, day after day, until vitality begins to fade in ways most people blame on stress, sleep, or getting older. What's happening beneath the surface is even more concerning. Low-grade inflammation can persist like a slow internal fire, weakening the gut lining, triggering constant immune activation, and forcing the body into a state of ongoing repair instead of renewal. Over time, this constant biological emergency mode may accelerate wear and tear on multiple systems at once. But here's what no one is telling you. The real driver behind this process may not be aging itself, but something far more specific happening inside your gut every single day. In my years of working with patients dealing with chronic fatigue, stubborn inflammation, digestive discomfort, metabolic slowdown, and early signs of accelerated aging, I've noticed a pattern that most people completely overlook. I'm Dr. Christal, and what I see in clinic isn't just isolated symptoms. It's a repeating biological story playing out inside the body. Many patients come in convinced the answer is in another supplement stack, a stricter diet plan, a new skincare routine, or the latest anti-aging trend. And while those things can help on the surface, they often miss what's happening much deeper, inside the gut ecosystem, where some of the most powerful signals of aging are actually being regulated. Over time, a clear observation starts to emerge. Two people with similar diets, similar lifestyles, even similar stress levels can age at dramatically different rates. One maintains steady energy, clear skin, and metabolic balance, while the other experiences constant fatigue, brain fog, bloating, and visible signs of premature aging. The difference is rarely just genetics. It often traces back to the internal balance of gut bacteria. And here's where things become both concerning and hopeful at the same time. Because while the gut can absolutely accelerate aging when it falls into imbalance, it is also one of the most adaptable and responsive systems in the entire human body. I've seen patients make relatively small, consistent dietary adjustments, and within weeks, they report noticeable changes. Improved energy in the morning, lighter digestion, reduced inflammation, and even a visible shift in skin clarity and tone. It's almost as if the body begins to wake up again once the gut environment starts to shift in the right direction. What's even more fascinating is that emerging research is now pointing toward specific groups of gut bacteria, often referred to as longevity-associated microbes. These bacteria don't just help with digestion. They appear to influence inflammation control, cellular repair signals, and even how efficiently the body manages biological stress over time. In some studies, they behave almost like internal regulators of aging speed, subtly influencing whether the body stays in a repair and renew mode or drifts toward decline. But what exactly are these bacteria doing inside the body at a biological level? And why do they seem to hold such power over how young or old we feel on the inside? In this video, we're going to break down something most people never realize about their own body: the fact that deep inside your gut lies a biological system that behaves almost like a control panel for aging speed. Once you understand how this system works, it completely changes the way you look at energy, inflammation, weight changes, and even how quickly the body appears to wear down over time. First, we'll uncover how the gut microbiome communicates with the rest of the body through powerful chemical signals. These aren't random processes. They are active biological messages that can either push your system toward repair and regeneration, or toward chronic inflammation and accelerated aging. Then we'll explore how beneficial gut bacteria produce specific compounds that directly influence inflammation levels, metabolic efficiency, and cellular repair pathways. These microscopic organisms are constantly shaping the internal environment in ways most people never feel until imbalance becomes obvious. After that, I'll break down 3 key mechanisms that explain why this system has such a strong impact on aging. You'll see how certain microbial byproducts help reduce chronic inflammation, how the gut lining acts as a protective barrier that can either strengthen or weaken your entire system, and how microbial balance plays a surprising role in regulating metabolism, energy stability, and even fat storage patterns. But this is where it becomes truly practical, because I'll also show you a simple, food-based protocol that can help shift your gut microbiome toward a more youth-supportive state, without supplements, expensive treatments, or complicated routines. These are everyday foods that many people already eat, but the real difference comes down to how they are combined, timed, and prepared. And here's the important warning: many people are unknowingly damaging their gut health even while eating what they believe is a healthy diet. Small, daily mistakes can quietly sabotage the microbiome and block the very improvements they're trying to achieve. The best part is that none of this requires extreme dieting or overwhelming lifestyle changes, just small, strategic adjustments that gradually shift the internal environment over time. And before we get into any of that, the first mechanism we're going to explore will completely change the way you think about aging from the inside out. Imagine your gut microbiome as a vast inner garden, stretching across your entire body in invisible layers of biological influence. In this garden, there are 2 competing forces constantly shaping your health. On one side are the flowers of vitality, grown and maintained by beneficial bacteria. On the other side are the weeds of inflammation, driven by harmful or imbalanced microbial strains that spread when the system falls out of order. When the beneficial bacteria are dominant, they act like expert gardeners who prune, protect, and nourish the entire landscape. They produce powerful compounds like short-chain fatty acids, which function like rich fertilizer for cellular repair. These compounds strengthen the gut barrier, calm inflammation, and send signals throughout the body that support regeneration and balance. But when the garden shifts out of harmony, everything changes. The weeds begin to spread unchecked. Invasive microbial species overtake the environment, and the once organized ecosystem becomes chaotic. This is where the trouble begins, because the gut is no longer just a digestive space, it becomes a source of constant biological disturbance. Toxins leak more easily through a weakened gut barrier, inflammation signals spread like wildfire, and the entire system begins reacting as if it's under constant threat. It's a chain reaction that quietly accelerates aging from the inside out. Higher inflammation leads to faster breakdown of collagen, which affects skin elasticity and accelerates visible aging. At the same time, energy production slows down because the body is constantly diverting resources toward damage control instead of renewal. Repair systems that once worked efficiently begin to lag behind ongoing stress. You can even think of your skin as the outer reflection of this inner garden. When the soil is rich and balanced, the surface appears vibrant and youthful. When the soil is damaged, the surface begins to show signs of decline. Your metabolism acts like an energy irrigation system, distributing fuel and vitality throughout the body. And your immune system, it becomes like security guards overwhelmed by constant false alarms, reacting to noise instead of real threats. This is why gut imbalance doesn't stay in the gut. It echoes everywhere, shaping how fast or slow the entire body appears to age. And now that you can visualize this inner ecosystem clearly, the next step is to break down the 3 specific biological mechanisms that determine exactly how this garden controls your aging speed from the inside out. Let's break this down into 3 core biological mechanisms that explain exactly how your gut microbiome influences the speed of aging inside your body. The first mechanism is inflammation control through SCFAs, short-chain fatty acids. When beneficial bacteria thrive in your gut, they produce these compounds as a byproduct of fiber fermentation. Think of SCFAs as microscopic fire extinguishers constantly patrolling your internal environment. Their job is to calm down excessive immune activity and reduce chronic inflammation before it spirals out of control. When this system is working properly, the body stays in a balanced repair state. Cellular damage is cleaned up more efficiently, tissue regeneration improves, and the biological noise that accelerates aging is significantly reduced. But when beneficial bacteria decline, these fire extinguishers become scarce, and low-grade inflammation begins to smolder unchecked. The second mechanism is gut barrier integrity. Picture your gut lining as a highly advanced protective wall that controls what enters your bloodstream. When this barrier is strong, it acts like a selective security checkpoint, allowing nutrients in while blocking harmful substances. But when it becomes weakened, often described as leaky gut, tiny particles like toxins, bacterial fragments, and inflammatory compounds can slip through. This triggers constant immune activation, as if your body is responding to a never-ending series of intrusions. Over time, this chronic immune alert state accelerates biological aging, drains energy reserves, and places continuous stress on repair systems. The third mechanism is metabolic and hormonal regulation. Your gut bacteria don't just affect digestion. They actively communicate with hormones that control insulin sensitivity, fat storage, and energy production. In this sense, the microbiome behaves like a metabolic thermostat, constantly adjusting how efficiently your body burns fuel and distributes energy. When this thermostat is balanced, energy is stable, metabolism is flexible, and fat storage is regulated. But when it shifts in the wrong direction, the body becomes less efficient, energy production slows, and metabolic dysfunction begins to mirror patterns of accelerated aging. When you connect all 3 mechanisms together, a clear picture emerges. Your gut bacteria are not simply passive helpers in digestion. They are active biological regulators controlling inflammation levels, barrier protection, and metabolic efficiency all at once. And together, these systems determine something most people never realize is being shaped every single day: the actual speed at which the body ages from the inside out. Across the last decade, microbiome research has expanded at an extraordinary pace, with findings coming from universities, clinical nutrition studies, and microbiology labs around the world. While the science is still evolving, a growing body of evidence consistently points in the same direction. The composition of your gut bacteria is closely associated with key markers of inflammation, metabolic function, and overall biological aging. In simple terms, multiple studies have observed that individuals with a more diverse and balanced gut microbiome tend to show lower levels of chronic inflammatory markers in the bloodstream, along with more stable metabolic performance. These are 2 of the most important factors linked to slower biological aging. When inflammation is lower and metabolism is more efficient, the body is able to allocate more resources toward repair, maintenance, and cellular regeneration, rather than constant stress response. Researchers are also increasingly exploring what is known as the gut-brain-skin axis, a communication network that connects microbial activity in the gut with processes affecting the brain, immune system, and even the skin. Early findings suggest that microbial balance may influence oxidative stress levels, collagen breakdown, and skin barrier function, factors that directly relate to visible signs of aging such as wrinkles, dullness, and loss of elasticity. What makes this field so significant is that it is no longer considered a niche theory. It is becoming a central focus in modern medicine and nutrition science, as researchers begin to understand that the gut is not isolated. It is deeply integrated with nearly every major system involved in aging and health. At the same time, scientists emphasize that this is not a simple or fully understood system. The microbiome is incredibly complex, and its effects depend on diversity, balance, diet, lifestyle, and environmental factors. Yet despite this growing scientific awareness, there is still a major gap between research and real-world application. Because even though we now understand how strongly gut bacteria are linked to inflammation, metabolism, and aging patterns, most people are still not activating or supporting these beneficial microbes correctly in their daily routines. And that disconnect is exactly where the next part of this video becomes critical, because it reveals how to practically shift this system using simple food-based strategies. To begin supporting the gut microbiome in a way that actually influences aging biology, the foundation always starts with prebiotic foods. These are the fuel source for beneficial bacteria. Without them, even a healthy microbiome struggles to stay stable. Prebiotic-rich foods include leafy greens, garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, and cruciferous vegetables like broccoli. What makes them powerful is their indigestible fiber compounds, which travel through the digestive tract and selectively feed beneficial bacteria deep in the colon. Think of this step as supplying the soil of the inner garden with nutrients so the good species can grow stronger and outcompete inflammatory strains. The next layer is fermented foods, which introduce live beneficial bacteria directly into the system. Foods like yogurt, kefir, kimchi, and sauerkraut act like biological reinforcements for the gut ecosystem. The timing here matters more than most people realize. Fermented foods are generally best consumed with meals rather than on an empty stomach, as food buffers stomach acid and increases the survival rate of beneficial microbes reaching the intestines. When taken consistently with meals, they help stabilize microbial diversity and reinforce the gut's protective functions over time. The third key strategy involves resistant starch, one of the most overlooked tools in microbiome science. Foods like cooled cooked rice, oats, and green bananas contain starch structures that resist digestion in the small intestine. Instead, they travel to the colon where gut bacteria ferment them into beneficial compounds like short-chain fatty acids. A critical detail is preparation. For example, rice that is cooked and then cooled overnight develops significantly higher resistant starch content compared to freshly cooked rice. This small change dramatically alters how gut bacteria respond. Timing also plays a subtle but important role. A practical approach is to focus prebiotic foods earlier in the day to feed the microbiome, fermented foods with main meals to reinforce bacterial diversity, and resistant starch foods either later in the day or as part of a balanced meal to support overnight microbial activity and repair processes. When these elements are combined, they create a powerful synergy. Fiber feeds the bacteria, fermented foods reinforce microbial diversity, and resistant starch fuels the production of anti-inflammatory compounds. Together, they shift the gut environment toward a more stable, youth-supportive state. However, many people unintentionally sabotage this process. One of the most common mistakes is relying on isolated healthy foods while still consuming heavily processed meals that disrupt microbial balance. Another is inconsistency, using these foods occasionally instead of daily, which prevents the gut ecosystem from fully adapting. There is also an over-reliance on supplements, when in reality the strongest effects come from whole food interactions, not isolated compounds. At its core, this is not about complexity or extreme dieting. It is about consistency in simple biological inputs that the gut recognizes and responds to over time. The microbiome does not change from occasional effort. It changes from repeated patterns, day after day, quietly reshaping the internal environment that influences aging itself. Here's what I tell my patients. If you want your gut microbiome to actually shift in a meaningful, lasting way, it's not just about what you eat, it's about how you combine it and how consistently you do it. One of the most consistent patterns I've observed in clinical practice is that people improve significantly faster when they combine fiber-rich foods with fermented foods in the same dietary routine, rather than treating them as separate health steps. The fiber feeds the beneficial bacteria, and the fermented foods reinforce the population. Together, they create a much stronger microbial response than either one alone. Another simple but powerful timing strategy is starting your meals with fiber-rich foods like vegetables or salads. This helps blunt post-meal inflammation spikes and slows glucose absorption, which indirectly supports a more stable gut environment. When the microbiome experiences fewer sudden metabolic shocks, it becomes more balanced and resilient over time. I also encourage patients to rotate their food sources regularly. Instead of eating the same vegetables, grains, or fermented foods every day, shifting between different types increases microbial diversity. A diverse microbiome is a more stable microbiome. It's better equipped to resist inflammation, process nutrients efficiently, and maintain long-term balance. There are also two often overlooked factors that make a surprising difference: hydration and stress. Adequate water intake supports the mucosal lining of the gut and helps microbial byproducts move efficiently through the digestive system. Meanwhile, chronic stress can quietly disrupt gut bacteria composition by altering hormone levels like cortisol, which directly affects microbial balance. And here's something many people don't realize until they see it in real life. Patients who rush their meals, eat while distracted, or consume food under constant stress often experience slower improvements, even if their diet is technically healthy. The gut is not just responding to nutrients, it's responding to the physiological state you're in while eating. When the body is in a stressed or rushed mode, digestion becomes less efficient, and microbial signaling is disrupted. What becomes clear over time is that transformation doesn't come from extreme protocols or complicated systems. It comes from simple, repeatable habits done correctly and consistently. In almost every case, small daily improvements outperform aggressive short-term changes when it comes to reshaping the gut and influencing long-term biological aging. One of the biggest reasons people fail to improve their gut health, even when they think they are doing everything right, is because of a few hidden but critical mistakes that quietly undermine microbial balance. The first mistake is overusing processed, healthy foods. Many products labeled as high fiber, low sugar, or gut-friendly are still heavily processed and lack the natural diversity of nutrients found in whole foods. While they may seem beneficial on the surface, they often reduce microbial diversity over time because the gut receives repetitive, simplified inputs instead of complex, varied fibers. The fix is simple. Prioritize whole, minimally processed foods like vegetables, legumes, fruits, and grains in their natural form. The second mistake is focusing only on probiotics while ignoring fiber. Probiotics introduce beneficial bacteria, but without prebiotic fiber, those bacteria struggle to survive and multiply. It's like planting seeds without watering the soil. The fix is to always pair probiotic foods with fiber-rich meals so the bacteria have a sustainable environment to thrive. The third mistake is inconsistent eating patterns. Switching between healthy eating and highly processed diets prevents the microbiome from stabilizing. Gut bacteria adapt to patterns, not occasional effort. The fix is consistency, maintaining a steady foundation of gut-supportive foods daily rather than cycling between extremes. The fourth mistake is high sugar intake. Excess sugar feeds inflammatory bacterial strains, allowing them to dominate the gut environment. Over time, this shifts the balance away from beneficial microbes and toward inflammation-promoting species. The fix is not total restriction, but reduction and replacement, swapping frequent sugary foods with fiber-rich or naturally sweet whole foods that don't destabilize microbial balance. The fifth mistake is stress eating or rushing meals. When the body is in a stress state, digestion is impaired and gut-brain signaling becomes disrupted. Even high-quality food is not properly processed under these conditions. The fix is surprisingly simple. Slow down, take a few deep breaths before eating, and allow the body to shift into a relaxed digestive state. What ties all of these mistakes together is a single principle. The gut microbiome responds more to patterns and environment than isolated food choices. When that environment is chaotic, even good habits lose their effectiveness. In the first 1 to 2 weeks of improving gut-supportive habits, most people begin to notice subtle but meaningful changes. Digestion often becomes more comfortable, bloating starts to reduce slightly, and there may be a mild improvement in morning energy levels. These early shifts are not dramatic because the microbiome is just beginning to respond to the new dietary environment. At this stage, the gut is essentially testing the consistency of inputs and slowly adjusting microbial activity patterns. By weeks 3 to 6, the changes become more noticeable and stable. Many people report clearer skin, more consistent energy throughout the day, and fewer inflammatory symptoms such as bloating, heaviness, or brain fog. Internally, this is where microbial balance starts to shift more meaningfully. Beneficial bacteria begin to establish stronger colonies, while inflammatory strains gradually lose dominance. This is also when the gut-immune connection starts to stabilize, leading to reduced low-grade inflammation across the body. If you found this breakdown valuable, consider subscribing for more science-based insights into how the body truly controls aging, energy, and long-term health. These are the kinds of biological mechanisms most people never hear about in mainstream conversations, yet they quietly shape how we feel every single day. And if someone you care about is dealing with constant fatigue, digestive issues, unexplained inflammation, or early signs of aging, share this video with them. Sometimes understanding what's happening inside the body is the first real step toward changing it. What you've learned today about the gut microbiome is only one layer of a much deeper system. Because while the gut plays a powerful role in regulating inflammation and metabolic function, emerging research is now pointing toward an even more fundamental factor, something that may influence aging speed at a level even before the microbiome becomes involved. It's subtle, it's often completely ignored, and yet it may be quietly shaping how every cell in the body responds to stress, repair, and time itself. In the next video, we'll go one layer deeper into that hidden mechanism and uncover why some people seem to age faster or slower, regardless of diet, supplements, or even lifestyle habits. Once you see it, you'll realize there's an even bigger system at work underneath everything we've discussed so far. Until then, stay consistent, stay aware, and remember, your biology is always responding to the signals you give it.